Hey everyone, welcome back. We've got a fresh story for you today, so let's dive right in. I'm Alex, and if you'd asked me just a year ago, I would have told you that everything was perfect in my marriage. I believed in us, and I was confident we had a solid foundation. Over the past few years, my focus was entirely on building our future. I had a business that was finally taking off, and I was expanding it to new cities. That meant a lot of travel, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, but I did it for us. I thought it was all worth it. But life has a way of knocking you down just when you think everything is going smoothly. The day my world came crashing down, the truth hit me all at once. And when it did, it was harder than I could have ever imagined. I was on a business trip, and it was going well. Meetings were productive, deals were closing, and I was already thinking about getting back home to spend time with my amazing wife. I was exhausted, but felt fulfilled, knowing that all the long hours I spent building this business were for our future. Then, that afternoon, my phone rang. It was Jack, a close friend of mine, but his voice was different, hesitant, unsure. But then he spoke, and everything changed. Alex, I don't know if I should even be telling you this, but I can't keep it to myself. I just saw Emma leaving a hotel with another guy. For a few seconds, I was silent. My mind couldn't quite process what I just heard. Maybe I misheard him. Maybe there was a mistake. But Jack wasn't the kind of guy to joke about something like this. I took photos, man. I didn't want to, but I had a bad feeling. I'll send them to you now. A moment later, my phone buzzed. My fingers felt stiff as I opened the message, and there it was, Emma, my wife, walking out of a hotel lobby. She wasn't alone. There was a guy right beside her. I didn't react. I didn't call her up and start yelling. I just stood there, staring at the pictures on my screen. The truth was staring me right in the face, but part of me still wanted to believe there was some kind of explanation. Alex, you still there? Jack's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. Yeah, I'm here, I replied, forcing my voice to sound steady. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but you had to know. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I wasn't angry at Jack. If anything, I was thankful. He didn't have to do this, but he did, and deep down, I knew he was right. I needed to know. But now that I did, what was I supposed to do with it? I came home earlier than expected. I didn't text or call ahead, just walked straight through the front door. Emma was in the kitchen, humming as she chopped some vegetables. She looked up, saw me, and smiled. How was your trip? She asked in a light tone. I kept my cool. I nodded and gave a casual response, pretending everything was normal. I watched her as she moved around the kitchen, letting her speak. Then, when she least expected it, I said the words, "Unlock your phone." The room went silent. The air felt thick with tension. Her smile faded slightly, but she quickly tried to recover, forcing a small laugh. What? Why? She tried to play it off, but I could see the way her fingers twitched. I didn't answer. I just kept staring at her, waiting, watching. She shook her head, nervous. Alex, come on, this is ridiculous. Unlock it, I said calmly, firmly. She crossed her arms, another nervous laugh escaping her lips. You don't trust me after all these years? I didn't argue. I reached over, grabbed her phone, and held it up between us. Her face went pale. Unlock it now, or I swear I'm walking out that door and never coming back. For a moment, she didn't move. She just stared at me, searching for a way out. But she knew there wasn't one. I knew it. She knew it. Her hands were shaking as she took the phone from me, her fingers hovering over the screen. Then, finally, she gave in. The lock screen vanished. The first thing I saw was a string of unread messages, some from a contact I didn't recognize, others from someone named John. I clicked one, then another, and another. It was all there. Explicit texts, photos, and videos. Things I never imagined Emma would send to another man. The worst part was, Emma used to send me photos of herself, sometimes quite explicit ones, to remind me of what I had at home. But I found out she'd sent them to John too. I scrolled through hotel reservations, late night chats, and plans to meet up while I was away on business. Detailed conversations about how she thought I was too distracted by my work to notice anything. How she felt like she could do whatever she wanted because I trusted her too much. The words blurred for a moment, but I didn't stop reading. I had to see it all, to know exactly who she was when I wasn't looking. Emma collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably, her hands covering her face as she cried. "I'm sorry. I was lonely. You're never home, Alex. I just. Her words came out in broken gasps, the guilt weighing heavy in her voice. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I love you. Please, just hear me out," Sophia pleaded, her voice trembling with emotion. But I didn't react as she expected. Without uttering a word, I took a screenshot of every message, photo, and video, transferring the files to my own phone. Then, just as calmly as I had asked her to unlock her phone, I placed it back on the table. I met her tear-filled eyes, and my voice came out colder than I'd ever heard it before. "I don't need to hear your excuses." Without another glance in her direction, I stood up and walked past her shaking figure. I went straight to our bedroom and began packing my clothes, important documents, everything I hadn't already taken with me on the last trip. I wasn't staying here any longer. I was leaving. I moved into a temporary apartment, blocked her number, and cut off all communication. If she wanted to say anything to me, she could do so through my lawyer. I immediately called him to start the divorce process. That was the difference between us. While she acted on impulse, driven by selfishness and confusion, I acted with clarity and purpose. I didn't want to face her in any mediation session or sit across from her pretending like there was any conversation left to have. My lawyer made it clear: no mediation, no drawn-out emotional back and forth, just a clean break. For the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe again. The pain didn't just vanish overnight. I didn't wake up the next morning free of everything I had just lost. But I realized I had a choice. Either I could sit in the misery of it all, or I could turn it into something productive. And I chose the latter. I threw myself into my business with a single-minded focus. The expansion I had planned, I made it happen, and quickly. I didn't just move cities. I rebranded my entire life. Day by day, the weight of what had happened became less and less. I wasn't healing just because time passed. I was healing because I actively chose to. Months later, I woke up one morning and looked in the mirror, barely recognizing the man staring back at me. Stronger, smarter, more successful. By this time, the divorce was almost finalized. The process took longer than expected because Sophia wanted more than I was willing to give. And the best part? I no longer felt anything for her. No anger, no sorrow, no lingering attachment, just indifference. And I knew that indifference was the best revenge of all. Then, after months of silence, months of rebuilding my life in a new city, and finally learning how to breathe without the weight of betrayal, I heard a knock at my door one evening. I had just finished work and was looking forward to a shower and some quiet. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, but something inside told me to check. When I opened the door, there she was. Sophia. She stood there, tears streaking down her face, her eyes swollen and red from crying. But what stopped me in my tracks wasn't just her state. It was the way she looked physically. Her stomach, round, heavy, unmistakably pregnant. I stood there, completely frozen, my mind struggling to process. And then, before I could say anything, she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She spoke between gasps, telling me how she had made a mistake, how she had spent months regretting it, how she had cried herself to sleep every night, haunted by the guilt of what she had done. She said she missed me, wished she could take everything back. And then she said it. "Daniel, this is your baby." She said it like a plea, like those words would somehow convince me to come back to her, like they were a lifeline she was throwing out, hoping I'd grab it. She told me she wanted another chance. She wanted us to be a family again. She promised things would be different this time. She swore she would be faithful. I stood there, listening, watching. For a brief second, I almost felt pity for her. But then I reminded myself why she was standing there in the first place. She wasn't here because she loved me. She wasn't here because she regretted the hurt she caused. She was here because she needed something. I let her finish her words. Every apology, every plea, every promise carefully crafted to tug at my heartstrings. When she was done, looking at me with tear-filled eyes, I simply nodded and said, "All right, let's get a DNA test." The moment those words left my mouth, her entire demeanor changed. The tears stopped. Her face paled. "What?" she stammered. She forced out a nervous laugh and shook her head, almost in disbelief. "Daniel, how could you even ask me that? You think I'd lie about something like this?" I said nothing. I just stood there, watching her, waiting. She continued, her voice shaking with anger now, accusing me of being cruel, of punishing her for the past. She told me I should trust her, that I had always trusted her before, that asking for a DNA test was an insult, an attack, a sign I never really loved her. And in that moment, I saw it all clearly. If she had nothing to hide, she wouldn't have been so scared. If she was sure the baby was mine, she would have agreed right away. But she didn't. She fought it. I took a deep breath, stepped back, and rested my hand on the door. "If you won't take the test," I said, my voice calm and firm, "I have nothing else to say to you." And without waiting for a response, I closed the door. I closed the door on her, and for a moment, I thought that was the last I would hear from her. But I was wrong. Months had passed since I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with her or her supposed pregnancy, and yet she decided to escalate things further. Out of nowhere, I was hit with a lawsuit. She was taking me to court, claiming that I was abandoning my child, the same child she had refused to take a DNA test for. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sophia had painted herself as the ultimate victim. She told the court how I had abandoned her when she needed me the most, how I had refused to take responsibility for my supposed child, leaving her to suffer alone. It was a well-crafted sob story, I'll give her that. She cried, sniffled, and played her part perfectly. To anyone who didn't know the truth, she looked like the woman who had been betrayed, a woman who had loved too deeply and been abandoned by the man she trusted. But there was one thing she didn't realize. She was lying. What she failed to account for was that I was no longer the man she had once manipulated. I had the resources, the money, and most importantly, the resolve to fight back. So I did what anyone in my position would have done. I hired the best lawyers in the city. These weren't just any lawyers. These were professionals who specialized in tearing apart manipulative spouses in court. And Sophia? She was just another case to them. The trial was relentless. My legal team wasted no time in dismantling her entire case. They brought out every shred of evidence, her affairs, her refusal to take the DNA test, her blatant attempts at extortion. They exposed how she had tried to manipulate the legal system, twisting the narrative to make herself out to be the victim when, in reality, she had been the one who destroyed our marriage. Every lie she told was countered with cold, hard facts. Every tearful performance was met with undeniable truth. By the time my lawyers were done, there was no question about who Sophia truly was. The courtroom, which had once echoed with sympathetic whispers about the abandoned pregnant woman, was now filled with murmurs of disbelief at her deceit. She had no defense, no way to justify her actions. She had come to court thinking she could ruin me, but in the end, she had only ruined herself. The judge didn't just rule in my favor. He went further. A cease and desist order was issued against her, prohibiting her from contacting me in any way. She had lost, and she had done it publicly. There was no coming back from this. As I walked out of the courtroom, I took a moment to reflect. I had once felt sorry for her when she showed up at my door, pleading for another chance. But after everything she had done, after all the lies, the manipulation, and the sheer audacity to take me to court over a child she wouldn't even prove was mine, I was just glad I never let her back into my life. At the end of the day, this whole experience taught me one important lesson. Never let guilt or manipulation cause you to question your worth. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. I ignored the warning signs. I trusted blindly, and I paid the price. But when I finally walked away, I didn't look back, and that was the best decision I ever made. If you ever find yourself in a situation like this, where someone is trying to guilt trip you, manipulate you, or use their own mistakes to make you feel responsible, stand your ground. Protect yourself. Because some people don't come back out of love. They come back out of desperation. And if you let them in, they'll destroy you all over again. But what do you think? If you were in my shoes, would you have handled it the same way? Or do you think I should have given her another chance? else. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you made it to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. It really helps the channel and ensures more stories are coming your way. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking real-life stories like this. See you in the next one.